we're creating a new object type, and that's what class means. Class is like an object type. So class just means we're going to define a new object type. The name of the object type is this. We're calling it message player die. And the way I like to name my messages is by writing message first so that we know it's a message, writing the type of the message. So we can make a bunch of different messages of type player. Message player die, message player scored points, message player beat level, message player got hit, whatever, right? Right now it's just die because that's all we really care about at this point. And this is really important. Extends, which is another keyword, it's another word defined in the language, the programming language here. It basically means this object will take all the properties of the basic message object. So again, you don't really need to understand how that works yet. You just need to know that you need to write it when you create a new message type. And we got all these curly brackets going around, and those just like define that, oh, this function belongs to this class because it's inside these curly braces. We're defining a function, and this function will always have the same name as the class, always have the same name as the message. That's because it's a special type of function that gets called when the message is created. It's called a constructor. But basically all you need to remember is that it's kind of like an initialization function. When you create a new message, this will always get called. And some more voodoo here is this term here, super. And what that means is that this is going to call a special function in the message object that we are extending. But ignoring that, what we're actually functionally using it for is to define a string value that sets the type of the message. So remember that we named this message player die because we want it to be of type player. This is where we actually define the type. And it can be a string of characters, whatever string of characters you want. In this case, we're calling it player. And I like to keep these in lowercase. So I realize this probably sounds kind of confusing, so I'll go over it again. Name of the message gets defined by message because it's a message, player because that's the type of message, and die because that's what the message is about. Now, you can use your own naming convention if you want. This is just the one that I tend to use because it makes sense to me. This function gets the same name as that because it's an initialization function that gets called automatically whenever you create a message. And this super call will set the type of the message as a string. And again, I would set that to this in lowercase. Okay. Well, bear with me here. So the other important key to this and how this all works, because it's not part of Unity, it's something that Flashbang has written to extend the functionality of Unity. We need a place where all this message sending can get processed. And that's this messenger object here. And all it is an empty object, just something floating around here that doesn't have anything on it other than a position and the messenger script. And this messenger script is what you get with the messaging library. And you don't need to understand how it works. You can look at the code if you want to. It's actually not that complicated. It actually uses Unity's send message function that we looked at earlier, but it uses it in a clever way that makes it so you don't really have to think about what it's doing. All you need to know is that you can make a prefab called messenger, and if you want to get organized with your hierarchy, you can actually call it space messenger, putting a space in front of it, not like science fiction space, but just a spacebar space. That way it'll get sorted to the top of the hierarchy, so you can kind of ignore it. I also have the HUD up here with a space in front of it and score up here with a space in front of it. So that basically we can ignore these things because they're going to be at the top and our other stuff will be down here. It's just a little organizational thing. But we need this object in the scene for messages to actually work. So that's something you have to keep in mind. This music is stressing me out. There we go. So what happens when we create a message? Because we know that we know now how to define a message, and we know how to create the messenger object that will handle the messages. But who is going to receive the messages, who is going to send the messages. Let's take a look at that. So we have here a ship that dies that calls the new message player die. And this sends off a message about our death. And at this point in the code, we don't know where it's going to end up, and we don't care at this point in the code. And this is a good thing. All we care about in this point of the code is the player died, we're going to send a message so something else can do something about it. We don't know where it's going. We don't care where it's going here. We just know that we died. We're going to tell somebody else about it. And that's all you need to do. You just do new message player die, or if you don't like that, you can actually just write message player die. You do need these parentheses though. So where is that message actually going? Well, any object that we want can receive that message now. And this is the cool thing. We don't need to actually have a link to the player or a link from the player to the thing that's receiving it. Those links are created in a different spot through the messenger. And any object can sign up to listen to the messages from the messenger. And here's how it's done. In the start function, and it has to be in the start function, it can't be in the awake function, and there's a good reason for that. I won't explain why yet. But basically, messenger.instance.listen, and this basically lets us get the actual reference to the messenger, and we call this listen function, and we tell it what type that we want to listen to. And remember, we created this type right here. Right, so we could call this whatever we want, blah, blah, blah. But then it wouldn't work with player, obviously. So you can name these whatever you want, but it's important to keep a consistent naming structure. So where was I? I was here in HUD. So the HUD is going to listen to player messages. So you tell it what type, and you pass it this, and this is just another magic variable that gets a reference to the thing that you are. In this case, right now, we are the HUD. So tell the messenger to send us all messages about player to us. And this is how we receive it. And this is another complicated kind of thing, but it's really not that complicated. You just have to remember how it works. So the messenger is going to sort through all the different things that are listening for objects and match them up with the type of objects that they want to listen to messages from. And this is the function where that message actually comes in. And there's a special naming convention for this. What it does, you take the name of the message, message player die, you replace message with an underscore. And this is a little bit weird to get used to. It's something that I had to practice a lot before I got used to actually doing it. But the benefits of the system greatly outweigh the slight inconvenience of having to remember that. And we're receiving a variable, we're going to call it MSG, and it's of type the message that we're waiting for, so message player die. So this is really easy to understand. It's just kind of hard to remember, oh right, I have to put an underscore here instead of writing message.